welcome to Joe Goes Everywhere, a big blend radio, food, wine, and travel podcast featuring award-winning photographer and travel writer Joe Clark. Let's find out where she's taking us today. Hey everybody, today, Joe goes everywhere, but today she's going to take us to Etosha National Park in Namibia, Southwest Africa. And we're going to talk about safaris, we're going to talk about animals, and we're going to talk about glamping, bush style. I mean, there's nothing like staying in Africa. They know how to do tented camps like nobody else. They really do. So how are you doing, Joe?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Doing good. I'm losing my voice a little bit. I don't know. I mean, maybe it's all the podcasting in the world, but
Oh, you only talk 24 hours a day. Why would you be hoarse?
apparently I do talk in my sleep. But we're
Ask
talking about
Nancy.
Etosha Pan, and it is salty out there, right? That's the whole,
That's true.
it is a salt
That's
pan.
it. That this behind us, this is the entire, as far as you can see, it's just little tiny shrub grass and white, because that's salt drying out there on the plain.
So you went to Namibia for 3 weeks.
Yeah. Yeah. It was
Wow.
fabulous. It was
Was
supposed
it
to
your
have been-
first time in Africa?
Oh, yes. Yes, it was. And I was ready to come back the next week.
Yeah.
I could be packed in an hour. If somebody wants to call me, just, Nancy knows how to reach me. Y'all call me. I can be packed in an hour and meet you at the airport.
Okay, that's it. Because that's the thing. They say that once you go to Africa and you get the dirt under your fingernails, you're in. That's it. It'll change you. Did it change you? Did it when you went there?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think so. Just the animals and the people, meeting the different people. The bush people were interesting, and we toured. Well, with 3 weeks, we weren't just sitting still, and we were really there a little more than 3 weeks. I think it was supposed to have been about a 2 week, a little over 2 week trip, and 6 out of 7 of us managed to get COVID and be quarantined and had to stay in one place. But it was 2 blocks from a beach, so I felt like I was at home. I would walk to the beach and walk the beach every day because I felt fine. I thought I had a sinus infection. I took a Z-Pack and felt better and just kept on trucking.
Wow. So, getting COVID, that's not cool, but you did have a safari of a lifetime. You got to see warthogs,
and it extended
lions.
it by another week.
Yeah, see, there it is. So you got to stay in Africa longer. So, if you have to get COVID to do that, well then, But let's see. So you were in Namibia and you went with Focused Escapes.
Yes,
And
sorry. That's Lori's company. A friend of mine from when I first started travel writing and took a class, she was one of the people teaching the classes on travel writing and photography for travel photography. And so Lori Allen, that company is no longer in business. Somebody bought it, and she started her own company, a tour company, Focused Escapes. And so she does small tours, and like I said, there were 6 of us, so it's very, very, very cozy. You get to know each other. You get to know the guy that led our tours, Sean Brain. He is a nature photographer, an herbologist. He's got so many credits to his name, I couldn't tell you all of those in the length of our show. And his father was a wildlife specialist, and I swear Sean just knows everything, and he can spot things. We would be bouncing down a road at what felt like 60 miles an hour, and he'd say, "Did you see that?" And all of a sudden he'd slam on the brakes, he'd hop out of the Jeep and run over, and he'd dig this little critter out of a hole, and it would be this little, basically invisible, like our ghost crabs here, but they're whitish, but they're kind of clearish. He would pull out a little lizard that would be like this big, and it would be clear. How he saw that thing going into a hole at a quarter of a mile away while moving, the man's got
he knew
good
animals.
eyes.
He knew animals. I mean, you know how to spot them once you get trained that way.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
it becomes part of, the habitat too, and where they're going to be found,
Yeah.
know,
And
and the
I
time
do
of
that with
day.
birds and other animals. I'll spot things and people are always saying, "How did you see that?" And well, something wasn't right. In that green, something flashed that was yellow.
Hmm.
So that caught my attention.
It was a cuckoo.
Yeah, maybe.
Hey, speaking of birds, you got to see Corey Bustards, and did
I
you see
did. And you know
Secretary?
what I thought he called those things with
I
his
know.
accent?
Hmm. I know you have
I
to be
kept trying to
careful.
find that name and couldn't. And I said, "Spell that."
You
It was
got
a you.
to. Yeah,
It
it's a
was a
you.
you.
Yeah, but
Corey
isn't that wild to see them? Did you get to see ostrich, and to see them?
Ostrich, yes,
Yeah.
up close. But the Corey bustard that you're talking about, people I know listening don't know that is the largest flying bird, and it's native to Africa. But it's also at 40 pounds the heaviest flying bird on the planet.
It's amazing, huh? It's amazing. And then you got to learn all kinds of fun facts about white versus, black rhinos. And
Oh man,
we've had the pleasure of being charged by the black rhinos a few times. That's always
well,
fun.
we were eyed, and he was considering charging us, we'll put it that way.
Hmm.
We moved along, we didn't stay and annoy him.
Good.
But yeah, I said it was easy to remember the nice rhino and the testy rhino. If you think about the cowboys, and the white hats are the good guys and the black hats were always the bad guys. The black rhino was the bad guy. He got up on the wrong side of the bed and stayed there for the rest of his life. They're just ill tempered. And I said, and in the article you'll see, I said, "You talking to me?" I
Oh,
mean, he's across the salt flat, and you drive by in a Jeep, and he'll whip around and look at you like, "Me?
you,
You talking to
yeah,
me?
yeah. Don't mess
Yeah,
with
make
them.
my day. Stop.
And
Make my
and
day."
and you mentioned the article. I want people to know your article about Etosha Pan, and everyone can see. I call it Etosha Pan, not the national park. I should. Um, you'll see the article up on nationalparktraveling.com, so people can, and to see all the pictures, because that's a thing. And trying to get wildlife photography is a whole other deal.
It is. It is. You have to be
And
patient. You have to not only know where they are, lots of people can go there and be around the right place, but they take two snaps and they're ready to move on and see something else. And, we were with a group who were perfectly happy to sit and watch two cheetahs taking a nap for an hour and a half, because they would stretch and they would turn, and then some zebras walked by, and one of them kind of paid attention and watched the zebras. So then we waited to see how long it would take for the zebra, or zebra as they say in Africa, how long it would take for that zebra to realize he was not alone.
right.
So but to get good animal photography, you just have to be patient and take a lot of pictures.
Yeah, you have to take a lot.
Thank goodness for digital. I mean,
And
I couldn't have
how is it
carried this
also?
much film.
Yeah, really. And having a guide that knows photography, that
Oh
helps.
yeah, yeah. He was ready to sit all day too. It wasn't
Mhm.
like, "Well, y'all have seen zebras. Let's move on and see something else." He was ready to sit there for an hour and a half too.
I am always.
Always,
So,
always.
and what about the
That's why we
warthogs? Come
went.
on, warthogs.
Oh man, are they the
Seriously,
ugliest things
they're
ever?
cute. They are so cute.
They're so
I
ugly,
love
they're cute.
warthogs. They are. I was just in Tucson. Nancy and I were in Tucson, and they have javelinas out there,
They
and
do.
they're peccaries. So I don't know if they're quite related, but you can smell them. Then that's what's out
You know
there.
they're there.
They're there. And
They
same with
remove all
warthogs.
doubt, don't they?
But don't you love how they run with their tail up in the air?
Yeah, and I've got a picture of that.
Hmm. Yep, I love
And
that.
I've got pictures of the rhinos too. I decided they're a lot like our American bison or buffalo. Um, you watch the tail and you can tell how they're feeling. It's like if their tail's hanging down, they're just sort of, yeah, and they're grazing and they're okay. But as that tail comes up, they're paying more attention to something, and you better hope it isn't you.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Or it's sometimes bugs. They're,
Could
using it
be.
as a swatter. But now you saw a lion as
We
well.
saw, oh yeah, we saw lions. We saw, and that was another one that we just stumbled on that. And again, I think that was Sean that morning. We were headed from the lodge back. We weren't staying inside Etosha, so we were at a lodge and we were going back to Etosha, and we were coming up this long road uh, to get from one point to the other, and out in a field all you could see were two little ears up above the grass. And then we stopped and started really watching, and it turned out to be three adult female lions, what looked like maybe two or three cubs from last year because they were pretty good size, and then a couple from the current year that were much smaller. And they were just rolling around in the grass and wandering around and playing, and that they were having a great time.
That's
And
awesome.
again, an hour later, we're finally saying, well, have y'all got as many pictures as you want, or do you want to stay longer? It was always up to us, which was fabulous, unless we
That's
were like
nice.
on a time clock to get, to check in or something. Um, and it was always hard to say, yeah, let's go, because you didn't know that you would find another animal after
You
you
could go
left.
for a
These
long
were a
time.
sure thing. Yeah, these were a sure thing. You could sit and watch these for another hour.
Well, the thing
And
too is the lodges are great because there's usually a watering hole, like, you know, and to
yeah,
be
the
able to
watering
sit,
hole was
have a
fabulous.
cocktail, and watch animals at a watering hole. There's nothing like it.
Absolutely. Nothing like it. And even dinner, we're sitting eating dinner that night, and the zebra were coming down and drinking at the watering hole right off the back of the restaurant, which was open air. So I mean, you're just, it's like you're sitting on your balcony at home and looking at deer in your backyard. It's amazing.
But they're black and white striped horses instead.
They're horses in black and white striped pajamas.
But so you've seen all this wildlife and amazing bird. Did you see lilac breasted rollers?
Yes, I have beautiful pictures of those. Those birds are like, they're like our painted buntings. Of course,
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
bigger birds, but the painted buntings in South Carolina, they've got like red and blue and yellow and
Green and
green, and
yeah.
they've got every color of the rainbow. And these lilac breasted rollers do too. They're just gorgeous.
And hornbills. Did you see hornbills and
Yes,
hoopoes?
we did. We saw the yellow-billed hornbill, and uh,
Cool.
there's a southern and a something else, maybe northern, I don't know, but there's two different yellow-billed hornbill, and
Mhm.
I'd have to go back and get my picture and set it beside of the bird
The
book to
book.
figure out which
Yeah.
one I saw which day, because we saw several of those, and flamingos and cormorants and cattle egrets, and the weavers are so neat. The
Oh
weavers,
my gosh, the weavers. Oh, I love
those
the
little
weavers.
teeny birds, and they
Like little
weave
goldfinches.
grass. Yeah, it's like little miniature potholders woven out of grass. They just weave and have that one little hole to go up into their
But have
nest.
you seen those huge nests they build? They're
That
massive.
Yeah, well, and trees with hundreds of them.
It's
Yeah.
amazing. It's
In
amazing.
Etosha, we didn't see that many. We saw more of those.
Yeah, there's not
I'm
as many
trying to think where
trees.
I
In
was.
the salt pan, there's not as many trees. But like now,
Right.
what was it? The lodgings looked amazing. The two different lodges you stayed at.
Yeah,
Tell
they
us about
were.
those because you had good food. I know. I think
Oh,
Africa as a continent does well in hospitality.
it does. It does. And I know some people don't want to eat something that they've been photographing all afternoon. I can kind of separate the two. That steak on my plate has nothing to do with the animal I saw this afternoon.
Mhm.
It wasn't him. He's still out there.
Oh,
So it didn't bother me. And which I know my mother is probably in heaven laughing her butt off at that comment, because I'm the kid that when she caught a rabbit and kept it for 3 days, I thought it was for me. I thought it was my pet.
Mm.
And all of a sudden, that rabbit appeared on the dinner table, and I threw such a fit over that rabbit. Even my father would not eat any of that rabbit. And later, Mama said she knew she had to eat that rabbit because she killed it now. And, or Daddy would have been upset if she had not eaten it. But she said she choked on every bite.
Oh man.
And now
Oh
here
man.
I am eating zebra and springbok and kudu and
Venison. Yeah.
all these things. And I didn't want to like the zebra, just because it's a horse in striped pajamas. Uh, but it was the best thing I had. It was delicious.
So tell us, what were the rooms like?
Oh, the rooms they had.
Was it like a tent? Did you stay in like a
Well,
tented camp?
I stayed in a part tent, part rock wall in one place, and it had, the tent top swag ceiling, but then there were beams too because it had ceiling fans hanging. That one was a lovely place. And we were
Mm.
there at the beginning of what would be winter. We were there in the entire month of June. So you think June, that's summer, not there. Uh,
No.
and so that was the place too that they had tent flaps that came down to close off the window on the outside and on the inside. So you could really button that little jewel up. It was like snug as a bug in a rug. And while we
Mm.
were at dinner that night, of course, the folks at that resort went in and filled our beds with hot water bottles.
Hmm.
So when you pull those covers back and climbed in that bed, it was just toasty warm.
That's awesome, huh? Did they make fires? Did you?
We had fires in the fire pit outside at the lodge. We got there so late. By the time we got checked in and we went and had a glass of wine and sat around the fire and went in and had dinner, it was time to go to bed.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like, if we had wanted to sit outside our tent, they would have happily built us a fire. And the things were provided. We could have built fires outside of each tent. Um, but man, after you've been going all day long, by the time you eat dinner and have a couple of glasses of wine, you're happy to go to bed and start dreaming
Hmm.
about the next day.
Mm. Because going on the dirt roads is tiring. You're bump, 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 bump all the way, right?
It
It's
is.
tiring. And even though it's winter, you're in the sun and it is draining, but it's so exciting. You're
It
right.
is. It
It's
is.
so, did you get to see the sunrise sunsets out there too? Because it's big.
The sundowner, the sunsets were fantastic. Um, yeah, and I loved having the sundowner celebration every day. If you were out in the bush, they opened the back end of the vehicle, and out of the boot came the bottles of gin and tonic and little things to put in it. And we had pink gin fizzes one day. That was pretty. It looked like the sunset. It was beautiful, but it was just neat to celebrate every day the end of the day with the drinks and calling it sundowner. So I'm always ready for sundowner now.
That's, I know it's fun. I mean, it's kind of a way of life.
Yep. Then the other camp that we stayed in had almost rounded huts with a thatched roof.
Rondavels,
Say it again.
rondavel, rondavel.
R
It's
O
around,
N
yeah, rondavel.
Rondavels.
Davel. It's
I've
Dutch.
learned something. I
Rondavel.
love it.
It's a
Rondavels.
rondavel. It's like a hut,
Well,
thatched hut. Hmm.
okay, well, we stayed in Rondavels, but they were beautifully appointed with um, animal skin rugs, the mosquito netting over each bed.
Oh, you want
Um,
those?
yeah, especially
Hmm.
me, man. I've got probably 30 bites from being outside yesterday afternoon too late. Mosquitoes love me in every country.
Because you drink wine.
Is that it?
They want your wine.
I could pour them their own glass.
It's
Maybe
the
I'll try
wine.
that.
Then they get in there.
Well, I don't care
And
as
then you
long as
have
they
things
leave me
swimming in your
alone.
wine. We don't want swimmers. I always rescue the swimmers. And sometimes body parts get into the wine when I do that. Anyway, this is a nice conversation.
Yeah, really.
Uh,
Maybe you can cut that part out.
yeah,
Let's go back to the black rhino and the white
yeah,
rhino.
right. Yeah.
you you know, before you went or before I went, I would have thought a black rhino was and a white rhino, they were just two different color rhinos. No, no. One is like 5,000 pounds and the other one is 2,000 pounds. One is because he is shorter and lighter. The black rhino is faster. He runs about 5 miles an hour faster, which might not be a whole lot, but it could come in handy if you were trying to outrun him.
Mhm.
Uh, but the size, he sprints faster, he can turn faster, and all of that helps the guy with the bad temper because that's the one I'm talking about that can do all these things. He's lighter and faster on his feet, and he's already mad.
They're not mean though. They're not mean. They're it's really quite interesting how focused they are because they do not have the peripheral vision. They are
and they
straight.
don't have good eyesight. The
I
white
know.
ones, especially, they say the white ones make their baby walk in front of them because it's the only way they can be sure where it is because they can't see very
Hmm.
well. So they keep the baby right in front. We didn't see a baby, unfortunately, but the
Oh,
white rhinos, it
they're
was hard.
cute.
Yeah, they're cute and they're the white rhinos never it was hard to get a picture of them with their head up, kind of a portrait,
Mhm.
because they're head down and eating grass and just chomping their way along merrily on their way. They
Mhm.
could care less that there's a Jeep over here 15 feet away. They just
Mm.
walk on by and keep on eating. And the black one's running from a mile away because he heard you sneeze.
Well, it's interesting too. I've seen lion take down rhino. I've seen that. I've
Wow.
seen those kinds of things, and that's you're talking about eating. They hunt for the pot, right? Food wise, but what's hard for people sometimes is watching an animal kill happen when you're out
Yeah.
in the bush. To
Yeah.
me, it's pretty exciting to see. Not that I'm into blood and death, it's the
Right.
cycle of life, and it is
It's gonna
absolutely
happen.
incredible. It's incredible to see how these animals move, you know? It is
Yep.
incredible.
And
Just
for a
the hunting
photographer,
too.
it's the same. I don't want it to happen. I don't want that baby zebra to be killed. But
No,
if it's gonna happen, I want to be there and get the pictures.
it's
I know
isn't it weird? It's a weird thing.
it
It's
is.
weird. It's weird, but it is a natural thing. So I always want people when they go to Africa for the first time to kind of understand it's going to happen. It's
Yep.
natural. It's normal. Don't try to get out of the Jeep and stop the animals. You will die. Don't do that. Don't get in the
Yeah,
way
they'll eat
ever.
you
Don't.
instead of the baby zebra.
Well, it's look at everybody getting in front with the bison here. It's like, come on,
What is with
stupidity.
that? How many do you have to see on YouTube and all these other social media channels? How many times do you have to see somebody tossed over the head of a buffalo to say, oh, maybe standing in front of the buffalo is not smart?
See, I think that's what's great about going on a naturalist led excursion because
Mm-hmm.
they understand not to, you know,
Interfere.
they understand respect for the animals. Like when you go whale watching boats are supposed to stay certain, so many feet away,
Right, right.
give the mom and the baby whale like space,
You're
So
there to observe and enjoy seeing them. You're not there to pet them.
it's their house.
It's not a petting zoo.
It's their house.
Yeah,
It is.
absolutely.
But that did
Absolutely.
when you went, were you pretty amazed when you actually started to see them in the wild? Because it zoos don't. I'm not a zoo person at all, but when they do the wildlife rehab, that's great. But when you see animals in the wild, you realize why they need to be in the wild.
Yeah.
It's a night and day difference. You know.
It
These
is.
animals are free, and it's like, wow, and you're surviving this way, you know?
Yeah, it's
That had to be
amazing.
pretty epic, like the first time seeing them. And
It is,
elephants, you saw
and we
elephants. Ooh,
yeah, right. We landed in Windhoek, and we had about a I think about a 3 hour drive to the first place that we stayed when we came into Namibia. And on the way there, we saw, I forget, maybe it was a giraffe. And we were about to fall out of the Jeep. Everybody's climbing over each other. We were, a giraffe, a giraffe. And, by the end of the trip, you're like, oh, yeah, there's a whole field of giraffes. Do you want to stop? Well, yeah, we
yeah.
did, of course.
I love giraffe.
But
I love them, and they're so in trouble now. We're losing our giraffe so rapidly. It's
well,
sad.
and the elephants, and then there's a third kind of rhino. There, I think it's northern white rhino, and there were only three left in the world,
Right.
and the
Mhm.
and the male died within the last year, I think. So there's just the two female left. So
It's sad.
unless they did some preserving, there won't be any more.
It's
I
sad.
hope they did something with him.
Mhm. I think that's where some of the zoos are doing some good work on that
Yeah,
level,
yeah.
you know. But it's the decline in the poaching is really rough.
Yeah, I've been
Yeah,
reading about that, and we didn't talk about that much in Namibia. I don't know. I think they may have a better handle on it. I'm not sure. But I know other places in Africa have lost
tons.
70% of their elephants.
Well, I know that even, when we were there in Africa and Kenya and South Africa, we were there at a very lucky time. But even then, the animals, the biodiversity is not what it was. We were really lucky, but even then, we were in the height of poaching. In the mid 70s and early 80s, poaching was rampant.
Oh
You
yeah.
could go to a watering hole, and in like a few feet, you'd have 30 different species of something, right? The biodiversity was incredible. You could have crocodiles, marabou, storks, zebra, impala, all of them, just all these different, not to mention the bugs and the snakes and all that cool stuff, which I do like. Sorry. But the biodiversity was incredible. And so now, whatever you see now, really treasure it, treasure it. And when you start to see, having gone out there, whenever you see like a plight of an animal, like the giraffe, doesn't that kind of touch you even further,
I
having been
think,
there?
yeah, yeah, it does.
Yeah,
And to see some of the things that people hunt them, or hunting's bad enough, but the poaching, to just kill an animal and cut off one horn, leave the whole animal there, that's just disgraceful.
a lot,
And
a
for
lot of the
people to
parks
think
are
that that
taking them
horn
off.
is going to make them virile men, I think it just makes you a jerk.
Yeah, no, I agree. They've started taking the tusks off of elephants and stuff like that, and some just to save their
Yeah,
lives.
yeah.
And yet when they're in the bush, they need that. So it's kind of it's a
Yeah,
rough
it's,
thing.
as they call it, a catch 22.
Hmm.
It and somewhere, and I didn't see it anywhere in Africa, but somewhere they dye the rhino's tusk like hot pink or something,
So that people don't mess with it.
because then they don't want it.
Mhm.
I've got to do some research on
I think
this.
Botswana did a lot of good programs, as well. They at one point did no poaching, no hunting, and then things got a little wonky. So it's different in every place, so, and it changes. Africa is always changing. It's always changing. Just what you think is going to be, it's going to change. But you were so lucky to go. You got it. You want
Oh
to go
no.
back? You want
Oh,
to? Mhm.
yeah. I could leave tomorrow. I could,
Did they
like I
give you
said, I
South
could be
African?
packed in an hour.
They had to give you South African wine while you were there.
They did. We had some Namibian wine too. There's
Ooh,
not, yeah, there's not a lot, but there's Namibian wineries. But again, that was because of COVID, that we were another week and a half later leaving than we were originally planned to be. And so when I got back into Windhoek, and I know it was where I was searching things, you know how Google listens. All of a sudden, I started getting little pop up things on my phone and computer that they're things I might be interested in. And it was a wine tasting in Windhoek. And I thought, oh, well, that would be fun. And then as I read further, it was a 4-day wine tasting, and they had over 200 vendors from South Africa that had come to Namibia. And it was, man, I would have been really happy to stay for those 4 days. Because of course, with 200 to try, and that's not 200 wines, that's 200 wineries. Each winery had 4 to 6 wines that they were pouring. And, I would be
South
face
African
down.
wine is exceptional. South African wine is exceptional.
It is.
It is.
And see what I'm drinking for today's happy hour. It's called Savannah.
And it's got a blend.
Yes, it's a red blend. And look at the rhino on the label.
And the monkey.
And
the fish eagle.
And the fish eagle.
And the warthog.
And your
cool.
Yes, your warthog, just for you.
I do love a good warthog.
And it's a beautiful red wine. Oops.
Oh,
I just covered up myself.
And you got palm trees on your glass. That's it.
I do.
She's in heaven. So, what are we doing next since we went? I mean, I was thinking about this. Joe goes everywhere. You've been to Portugal, to the Azore Islands, taken us to North Carolina. You've taken us to Georgetown in South Carolina, Myrtle Beach. I mean, we've been going all over. Then all of a sudden you're like, well, hey, we're going to Namibia.
The 4 R's in Virginia.
Yeah, we did Virginia. So what's next?
I think we're going to Georgia, and we're going to go to LaGrange, Georgia. They have some fabulous gardens and a drive-through safari zoo. They have one of the best Bible museums or biblical time museums. When you get there, you're walking through little tents and on dirt paths and places that are carved out of the hillside. You feel like you've stepped into Jerusalem. You're waiting for the men in the robes and the sandals to come out
with wine.
Yeah, preferably. But it's a great place. I can just see school trips. The Christian schools and the homeschool teachers need to be taking the kids there. They have the sand pits that they can sift through and find fossils and different things. So they learn about how you find these small pieces of a piece of clay pottery maybe, and how you decide that was, whether it was a bowl or a plate, but just so many educational programs. I would love to go and do a week of educational programs. They could just pretend I was a kid.
Joe, you're always allowed to be a kid. All of us are. Who said we have to grow up? We don't want to grow up.
I know.
So everyone, tune in.
I've grown up a couple of more inches, but then my height and weight would be better proportioned.
Oh, I understand that. Yeah, I'd like that too. I'd like that. I need to stretch a little. Yeah, I need a little bit of the muffin
and
top
be
to
able
go
to
the
see
ankles.
over the other people would be nice.
Yeah.
I'm always, looking at the back of somebody's neck. Everybody's a head taller than me.
That's funny. That's funny. Everyone, every second Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern time, we go around the world with Joe, because she goes everywhere, as you can tell, and she goes with wine. Have Glass Will Travel. So the article again is on nationalparktraveling.com. The link is in the episode notes. And so are Joe's websites, Have Glass with Travel and recipestravelculture.com. Thanks, Joe. This has been super fun.
It has. Thank you. Bye, everybody. See you in Georgia.